In 1997, Apple was dying. It was 90 days from bankruptcy. Its products were a confusing mess. Its market share had collapsed. Dell's CEO famously said if he were in charge, he'd shut it down and give the money back to the shareholders. The story should have ended there. Another forgotten pioneer of the computer age, buried in the graveyard of failed tech companies. But it didn't. How did a company on the brink of absolute collapse claw its way back to not only survive, but to become the most valuable and influential corporation on planet Earth? How did it change the way we live, work, and communicate forever? The answer isn't just about technology. It's a story of rebellion, of exile, and of a triumphant return. It's a story about two friends in a garage, a legendary firing, and a single-minded obsession with the intersection of art and engineering. This is the core of Apple Explained. Our story begins, as all great Silicon Valley legends do, in a suburban garage. The year is 1976. The garage belongs to the parents of Steve Jobs, but the company really had two founders, two Steves. Steve Wozniak was the wizard, the technical genius, a brilliant, good-natured hacker who could bend circuit boards to his will. For him, building a computer was a joyful act of creation. He designed what would become the Apple II computer, mostly to show off to his friends at the Homebrew Computer Club. He had no grand ambitions to sell it. And then there was Steve Jobs. Jobs was the visionary, the relentless, charismatic, and often ruthless force of nature who saw what Wozniak's creation could mean. He didn't just see a complex board of chips and wires. He saw a tool that could change the world. He saw the future, and he knew how to sell it. Jobs convinced Wozniak to start a company. They sold Jobs' Volkswagen van and Wozniak's prized calculator to fund their new venture. They called it Apple Computer. Why Apple? Because it sounded friendly, simple, and not intimidating. The exact opposite of every other computer company at the time, like IBM. Their first product, the Apple I, was really just a circuit board. You had to build your own case, find your own keyboard, and plug it into your own TV. It was for hobbyists. But their second, the Apple II, was the revolution. Released in 1977, the Apple II was the world's first successful mass-market personal computer. It came in a sleek, friendly plastic case. It had a keyboard. It had color graphics. You just took it out of the box, plugged it in, and it worked. This was the first aha moment for the world. Before the Apple II, computers were giant, million-dollar machines locked away in corporate basements. Wozniak and Jobs put that power on your desk. For the first time, a regular person, a student, a writer, a small business owner, could own a computer. The Apple II was a massive success. It turned a garage startup into a billion-dollar company and launched the personal computer industry. Apple was on top of the world. But Steve Jobs was already looking for the next big thing. He was obsessed with an idea, making computers not just useful, but intuitive. So easy to use that a child could figure it out. He found the key at a place called Xerox PARC. He saw a demo of something they had invented but didn't know what to do with. The graphical user interface, or GUI. Instead of typing text commands, you could click on little pictures, icons, with a device they called a mouse. For Jobs, this was a revelation. This was the future. He poured all of Apple's resources into a new machine that would use this technology, the Macintosh. The lead-up to its launch was pure Jobsian theater. During the 1984 Super Bowl, they aired what is now considered the most famous commercial of all time. It didn't even show the product. It showed a dystopian, Orwellian world of mindless drones being saved by a rebellious heroine. The message was clear. IBM was Big Brother. Apple was rebellion. Apple was freedom. When the Macintosh launched in 1984, it was a thunderclap. It introduced the world to Windows, icons, menus, and the mouse. It introduced the desktop. It changed our fundamental relationship with computers forever. But behind the scenes, a war was brewing. The Macintosh was beautiful, but it was expensive and underpowered. Sales were disappointing. The company's board, led by the CEO Jobs had hired, John Sculley, was losing patience with Jobs' volatile management style and massive spending. In their eyes, Jobs was a brilliant visionary but a terrible manager.
This is a bad idea.
In 1985, after a bitter power struggle, the unthinkable happened. The board sided with Scully, and Steve Jobs, and the man who founded Apple in his parents' garage, was fired from his own company. He was 30 years old, devastated, publicly humiliated. The company he had built had just shown him the door. For the next decade, Apple drifted. Without Jobs' singular vision, the company lost its soul. It was run by a series of CEOs who were more interested in profits and spreadsheets than in making insanely great products. Their product line became a disaster. They released dozens of different, confusing Macintosh models. They tried to make printers, scanners, and one of the most famous failed products of all time, the Apple Newton. It was a handheld device that was supposed to recognize handwriting. It didn't. Apple became irrelevant, a punchline. The rebellion had fizzled out. By 1997, the company that had put a computer in every home was on life support. They were 90 days from going bankrupt. The company needed a savior. And in a desperate, last-ditch effort, the board made a shocking decision. They decided to buy a company called Next, a company founded by none other than Steve Jobs. And with that purchase, the king returned from exile. When Jobs came back to Apple, he found a company in chaos. He famously walked barefoot into the boardroom and declared, "The products suck! There's no sex in them anymore." He acted swiftly and brutally. He slashed the entire product line, cutting 70% of the hardware and software. He cut it down to just 4 products, a desktop and a laptop, for consumers and for professionals. That's it. Clarity, focus. He also needed to remind the world what Apple stood for. He launched a new advertising campaign that, once again, didn't show a single product. It just showed black and white photos of icons, rebels, geniuses, people who changed the world. Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali. The slogan was simple: think different. It was a rallying cry, a declaration that Apple's soul had returned. But a slogan wasn't enough. They needed a hit product. And in 1998, they got one: the iMac G3. In a world of beige, boring computer boxes, the iMac was a revelation. It was a beautiful, all-in-one computer in a stunning, translucent Bondi blue shell. It had no floppy drive. It was the first computer to bet everything on a new port called USB. It was designed to get you on the internet in 2 simple steps.
Yes.
The iMac wasn't just a computer. It was a piece of pop culture. It was an icon. And it saved Apple. It was a massive commercial success. And for the first time in years, Apple was profitable. More importantly, it was cool again. Steve Jobs had stopped the bleeding. He had reminded the world what Apple was, but saving the company was just the beginning. His next act wouldn't just save Apple. It would change the world. By the early 2000s, the world was changing. The internet was booming and a new technology was taking over: digital music. People were downloading MP3s, but the experience was terrible. The players were clunky, the software was confusing, and buying music legally was almost impossible. Jobs saw a huge opportunity. He saw a way to bring Apple's legendary simplicity to the chaos of digital music. The result, launched in 2001, was the iPod. The iPod wasn't the first MP3 player, but it was the first great one. It was beautiful. It was simple to use with its revolutionary click wheel, and it came with a killer piece of software, iTunes. But the most brilliant part was the slogan, 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was a masterclass in marketing. It didn't talk about gigabytes or technical specs. It talked about a benefit, a feeling. It was a promise. The iPod, combined with the iTunes Music Store launched 2 years later, completely transformed the music industry. Apple became the biggest music retailer in the world. The iPod was a phenomenon. It put Apple at the center of the digital world. But it was also a warning. Jobs saw that phone companies were starting to put music players into their cell phones. He knew that one day a phone could make the iPod obsolete. So he decided to make that phone himself. He decided to cannibalize his own most successful product before someone else did. What followed was one of the most secretive and ambitious projects in corporate history. Jobs pushed his engineers to create a device that was years ahead of its time. He wanted a revolutionary phone, a widescreen iPod, and a breakthrough internet communicator. all in one device. He wanted a screen you could touch, no keyboard, no stylus, just your finger. The pressure was immense. The technical challenges were thought to be impossible. But on January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs walked on stage and delivered the most famous product launch in history: an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone. The iPhone changed everything. It wasn't just a phone. It was a powerful computer in your pocket. It introduced the world to multi-touch, to apps, to a truly mobile internet. It killed the BlackBerry. It made Nokia irrelevant. It completely redefined the entire mobile phone industry. But the iPhone's true genius was unlocked 1 year later with the launch of the App Store. This was the second aha moment of the modern era. By allowing outside developers to create software for the iPhone, Apple didn't just create a great phone, it created a new economy, an ecosystem. Suddenly, your phone could be anything: a gaming console, a GPS, a movie studio, a bank. The iPhone, powered by the App Store, became the most successful product of all time. It propelled Apple into becoming the most valuable company in the world. In the years that followed, the empire grew. In 2010, they released the iPad, creating an entirely new category of computing between the laptop and the smartphone. But as the company reached its highest peaks, its iconic founder was facing his own mortality. Steve Jobs passed away in 2011 after a long battle with cancer. The world mourned. Many wondered if Apple could survive without its visionary leader. But Jobs had built a company designed to last. His successor, Tim Cook, a master of operations, took over. Under Cook, Apple hasn't been defined by revolutionary new product categories, but by relentless perfection and expansion. The iPhone has become more powerful every year. They've launched the Apple Watch, dominating the wearables market. And they've built a massive multi-billion-dollar services business with Apple Music, iCloud, and Apple TV+. Apple has become the world's first $3 trillion company. The startup from a suburban garage is now a global empire, more valuable than the entire economy of most countries. So, what is the core lesson from the story of Apple? It's not just about building computers. It's not just about brilliant marketing. The core of Apple, the idea that Steve Jobs infused into its DNA, is the belief that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with the liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing. It's the belief that for a tool to be truly revolutionary, it must be simple, beautiful, and empowering. It must feel less like a machine and more like an extension of ourselves. From the Apple II to the iPhone, that has been Apple's secret weapon. They don't just sell us gadgets, but they sell us the belief that we, the users, can be creative, productive, and powerful. They sell us the belief that one person, with the right tool, can change the world. Because they did. So now I have a question for you. What do you think was the single most important decision in Apple's entire history? The firing of Steve Jobs, the launch of the iPhone, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below.